Hey there, it's Sheryl, mental toughness coach, published author, speaker, and mother to a couple of great kids who are now high school and college Division I student athletes. Today we're going to talk about 3 ways that teens can crush January, and that's including finals if they don't have those out of the way. First, I hope that your teens are in the swing of things back from a break. I hope they had a nice break. And I'm going to provide some New Year's tips so teens can be sustainable high performers. And the emphasis is on sustainable so they can keep up that great momentum until the final stretch, the end of the school year. But the habits that they have now in January are really going to matter. So the first one, and I talk about it all the time, and I'll continue to talk about it, is sleep. And I know this is rough. We've talked about it over and over, but it's incredibly important, and it's very vital that teens have late nights, and I know it happens, but it's important that those are the exception rather than the rule. And I'm really going to challenge teens here because I want them to get 50 minutes more of sleep per night, and I think this can happen most nights, and it's really going to depend on how organized they are and what their priorities are, and also how efficient they are. So coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to give some tips for that, but I'd also like to hear about ways that you think that your teen can get some better sleep. But here's the challenge: 50 minutes more sleep per night. And if you are a parent or a coach, I am challenging you to do the same, assuming you are not getting a minimum of 7 hours. And if you are, let's go for 7 hours and 50 minutes. All right, so the challenge for sleep, 50 minutes more per night on most nights, super important. The second thing that teens can do to crush January and beyond is to be still. Now, we recently talked about being still and present before an important event, but now I really want to challenge teens to be still 3 times a day. The reason being is, if you think about it, teens are in school all day, then they study for many hours, and many times they're practicing their sport. So those neurons are firing all day long and most of the way through the night, and it's exhausting. It takes a lot of fuel to think for those neurons to send neurotransmitters back and forth, back and forth. So it's very important that teens are still a couple times a day to give their brains and their neurons just a rest so they can recharge. And I know it takes a little bit of time, but it'll actually help them be more efficient and more productive. So here's the challenge for this one. I like teens, when they get up in the morning, preferably they should be up and out of bed, but if it's cold or they want to stay in bed, that's fine too. But I just want them for about 2 to 3 minutes to be very still, not worry about a thing, just focus on their breath. If they want to listen to music, that's totally fine too, but the music should not have any words in it and should be very calming. I really encourage them not to listen to music though, because it's probably on their phone, and then there's probably gonna be other things popping up on there. So if they can get up in the morning and sit up and really be still and just focus on their breath for 2 to 3 minutes, that would be amazing. Do it again when they come home, and most importantly, do it before they go to bed. That will help them get a more restful night's sleep, and it's an incredibly important habit to get into. The third thing is for teens to take control. I've talked about control a lot. Those of you who have been following me for a while understand the concept that teens get most anxious and worried when they don't have control. In other words, when they don't have control over what's on a test or how difficult it's going to be, or they don't have the control over an outcome of an athletic event. So that can be a little nerve-wracking. But they can take some control, and here's how they do it. They can recognize when they're feeling a certain way, and then they can decide what to do with it. So they can recognize if there's drama with a friend, boy, that girl's really not being nice and it's making me very angry. So they recognize it, and then they know that it's okay. So in other words, they can accept it and be in peace with it, rather than be very angry and emotional about it. So they're really choosing how much emotional energy to put into something that's perceived as negative. Hopefully that makes sense. So they're recognizing, and again, they can release it. That person's not being nice, I don't like that, or this test is making me very worried and I don't like the way I feel. Understand that it's okay, and then make an effort to release it. And that is, again, of course, by taking a nice deep box breath, or more likely 2 or 3. And then finally, once they're calm and kind of back into the present, set a strategy for what do they need to do. Do they need to take a quick break? Do they need to call a friend and get help? Do they need to study a certain thing? Or if it's a competitive event, what is the most important thing that they need to think about in order for them to play their best? So them taking control is very important, and them making decisions about how much emotional energy they're going to place on something and how they're going to recover and make progress. In other words, them learning the skills to be resilient. So here's a quick reminder. On Thursday, I'm going to coach this content live on Facebook at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to be live and interactive. Have your questions ready. We'll have a little bit of bonus material in there as well. Thanks so much for listening and reading. I look forward to seeing you live on Facebook, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time.